I don't know where this week's gone. I don't know you guys. I know it's the silly season out there and it's very, very busy, but it's been hyper busy here at Business Success Academy and 3XM HQ. So it's all good though. It's all good. It's good to be busy. It's good to be sharing. It's good to be helping people. It's good to see so many of our clients doing so well. I know in certain parts of the world we're just opening up again. So in the UK, all the photographers in England are just opening up this week, and there's still challenges out there. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. The vaccine is on its way. It'll take time. Don't let your guard down. Keep up the good things. Wear your masks. Keep your social distance. Wash your hands on a regular basis. Still be careful. Even though the vaccine's on its way, it's going to take months and months and months and months. And it'll probably be the summer before we're all covered off. So don't let your guard down. Keep safe. Stay healthy. So today we're on the second session of preparing your business success plan to make 2021 your most successful year in business yet. So let us just have a look at what we did the other day, and then we will get straight into today's stuff, because we've loads to do in less than an hour. So it's all about creating your business success plan to make 2021 your best year in business yet. Because if you're like me, we've a bit of catching up to do, because 2020 has not been the best year in business yet. But we're here and we're surviving, and we're not thriving, but we're surviving, rebuilding, and hopefully towards the summer next year we'll start to thrive again. But thank you all for your business. We really do appreciate it. It's your business that allows us to do things like this. Okay, so why you need a business plan. So we talked on Tuesday, and I told you the story that you don't want to end up in a place where someone tells you, if I were you, I wouldn't be starting from here. So that's the whole idea of the plan. And I know that there's, how could you ever plan for COVID in 2021? You couldn't, right? You couldn't plan for it. However, when you have a plan, you have a foundation to act on it. So a lot of photographers I know during lockdown had a plan. So they revisited their plan, and they did a lot of good work on their marketing and stuff like that. A lot of people without a plan were sort of stuck and didn't know, well, what do I do now? So at least if you have a plan, you know what you can do and what you might do, and you can build your marketing leads, and you can do other stuff. So that's why it's really, really important. But it's not only just about the plan, right? Because if I'm baking this beautiful cake, and I love cake, I've got to have the right ingredients. And I've got to do it in a certain process, or otherwise it's likely the cake isn't going to turn out as I would like it to be. It's not going to look or taste as I want it to be, as the vision I have. So the same comes to business. You've got to have your plan. However, planning can be really difficult. It can be really complex, but it doesn't have to be, because your plan has to be really, really simple. And what we've done is we've taken best practice across a whole load of people far more intelligent than I am, and put it together and made it local to our business as photographers. In fact, this works for every small business, but we have given it that little photography nuance to it, and we have merged it with some other stuff. So we've involved profit first calculations in here. We've looked at two on the vision side, big, hairy, audacious goals, which we did on Tuesday. We looked at core values. We looked at why you're a photographer and your purpose. That's really, really important. On Tuesday, we also then did your client goal avatar. Sorry, not your client goal avatar, which is your brand positioning and quality positioning statement. So you should have that piece done. And I also gave you a link to the group BSA Mastermind, where you can get all this content for absolutely free. It's our way of helping you as our clients and potential clients. But we also have a deep dive into more detail around each of these. So we actually have an hour session on each of those, and you can see them in the units tab in the group. Okay, so today we're going to do your client gold avatar, and we'll talk about why that's important. We're also going to create your client gold elevator pitch. But before that, we're going to have a look at the numbers, because the numbers are really important. And with all my interaction with a lot of photography businesses, this is the bit that's missed. And I can understand why, like I started life thinking I wanted to be an accountant, and I did my level 1 ACCA exams. I went, this is not for me. I'm actually a marketeer and more of a business person, and I love setting up new things. So there's a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit in me. And I don't really want to be an accountant. Yes, I need to understand the numbers and the commercials and stuff like that, but it's not what I want to do day in, day out. So we've taken all that and all that knowledge, and we've built calculators to actually help you with the numbers. By translating what the numbers mean back into a few simple questions that will calculate out for you everything you need to know, from what you want to earn from your business, starting with that, answering some figures, to calculating how much you can actually spend to generate a lead in your marketing, and how much you can spend to get a booking in front of your camera, and to experience what you have to offer. So those KPIs, as we call them, key performance indicators, there's a few key ones you need to be aware of that you basically own and you live by and you measure by and you use to change how you do things. They inform the data, informs the changes you need to make, whether that's a charity marketing initiative, whether that's a Facebook marketing funnel initiative, whether that's, it doesn't matter what it is, the numbers are what actually tell what's happening, not what you think is happening, not what your gut tells you it's happening. The numbers actually are the result and tell you what the results are, but they inform the changes that you need to make as well. So we're going to deep dive into the numbers to start with, and hopefully you will all stay with me through it. But this whole process is all about discovery. These are my 3D circles of continuous business success. So everything you do is you go through a stage of discovering something. You do some research as you discover, and then you make some decisions, which allows it to link into your plan. And then see this quantify, that's what we're going to do now. We're going to sort of quantify some of this stuff that we've done already. And then the most important bit, and the bit that a lot of people don't do, is we got to do it. We got to get on and make it happen. Yeah. Because an imperfect plan implemented is miles better than the perfect plan that's never gets done. Yeah. And if you're a perfectionist, some people are perfectionists. I'm not a perfectionist, but some people are perfectionists, and they just get wholly tied up in making sure it's perfect. Just do it. Just do it. Is that Nike, I think, say that? Let's just do it. It's really important just to do it on occasion. Okay, if you have any questions, just ask them in the chat and we'll get to them at the very end. Okay, so what we did on Tuesday. So what we did on Tuesday is we looked at your big, hairy, audacious goals, and we went through a process to do that. So if you haven't done that yet, either join the group for free, BSA Mastermind, and deep dive in there, or have a look at Tuesday's think tank, and you'll see it. We talked about getting your purpose down, your first draft on paper. We talked about your core value statements, and we did this brand positioning statement. So today we're going to do the client goal avatar, the elevator pitch, and more importantly, the numbers here, the key numbers, your KPIs that you're going to measure going forward. So the reason why the KPIs are really important is, as we said, they determine everything. Everything that you do can translate back to a number. And it's those numbers that will inform you to make you better at business, because business is difficult, And the other important thing is that small business owners, we're not accountants. So we need the numbers to make sense to us. And initially, when you go through these calculators, they mightn't make sense. But when you actually live them and you use them, there's only a key few numbers you're going to measure. So let's get started with that. Okay, that's what we're going to do after that. So let me just stop this share and let me share the first calculator. And we're just going to briefly talk through the calculator. Now, it's important when we're doing this calculator. I mentioned already that a lot of the principles that come from this are, hopefully you can, I want to make sure you've got the right one there. Share, and I want you to see this one. Share. Okay, now you can see it. Okay, so what I want to make sure when we go through this is based on Profit First principles. So some of you may be aware of Profit First already, but I'm not going to deep dive into Profit First today. I want to deep dive into some of the other numbers instead. So I will explain briefly the principles as to what's driving the number so you understand it, but I'm not going to explain all the principles behind Profit First, because that's a couple of hours on its own, okay? But it will give you an understanding. So one of the things that Profit First does talk about is the importance as a business owner to get paid for the work you deserve to be paid for. Yeah, because quite often as the business owner, we're the person who's left last. We're the ones who have to sleepless nights and take all the risk, and often we're the ones that sacrifice ourselves. And a simple profit first principle is that the owner of the business should not make a sacrifice. You should make sure that the owner always gets paid what they're due. What you as the owner should get paid. So that's why when I calculate out the numbers out is I start with that. I start with every photographer I talk to and say, so what do you want the business to pay you as the owner? And owner's pay in profit first terms is net of tax. So what do you want to take out of the business as the owner, net of tax? Because your business should always pay tax for you, another profit first principle. And these numbers, it doesn't matter what they are, right? Because everyone's numbers are unique. It can be 1,000 because you're just starting out and you've another job and you want to build up a business, but you want to make sure that you do things correctly and you price things correctly so that when you do go full time, that everything is in place, the foundation is in place to go full time at the right prices with the right clients and all those important things. And then, so everyone's number is different based on country, location, cost of living is different everywhere. So don't get hung up on the number. Yeah. Let's just follow the principle. So the first thing I ask you is, what do you want to earn from your business net of tax? And this can be anything. I'm going to change this now. I'm going to make this 40,000. So this is nobody. Yeah. I said this number can be 1 million or it can be 1,000. The number doesn't matter. Just follow the principle. Okay. The second question then is, every business is set up to do a certain number of client sales sessions. Because if you're going to do 50 sessions a day, or you're going to do 4 a week, that's a completely different operational setup as a photography business. It's a completely different setup from the number of staff you need and the systems you need and everything else. Okay. So what I ask you here is the number of client sales sessions, not the number of people who are going to be in front of camera at the booking stage, but the people who are actually going to come back for the viewing are there. What is that number in a full 12 months for you? And you got to factor in your holidays and everything else here as well, right? So I put in 100. I'm going to leave it at that. Yeah, that can be 1,000. It can be 50. It can be 20. Your number is unique to you, and there's no number better than another number. Yeah. So start with that. The third question then I have is, so the cost of goods. So your cost of goods, and people talk about this in so many different ways, and they say, you should price your pricing at 5 times or 10 times the cost of goods. Your cost of goods are basically what you buy in to fulfill an order. So for example, if you're using a 3XM folio box, or you're selling wall art, or you're buying prints from your lab, or indeed if you're a wedding photographer and you hire in a second shooter who's not a full-time staff member, they would fit in here. But for most of us, it's our lab bill and our 3XM bill and whatever else it is. So just put in a figure there. So I'm going to put in 250 here. Okay, as my average cost of goods. So that's a nice 10 by 8 folio box with a folio art frame and 20 prints, right? That's going to be my average. Let's just say that's what that is. So the next step then, and this is the only time in business I put the cart before the horse. So I'm asking you here is to work backwards. So your bookings are the people who are in front of camera for the experience, okay? It's the step prior to the viewing when they are actually going to view the images and buy. That's your selling zone. Yeah, that's the selling stage. So what I'm asking you is, what percentage of client bookings, i.e. the people that go through your experience and book in and get in front of camera, are the people who book in who don't turn up, your no-shows? Yeah, because we all have those. Even the airlines have those. That's why they overbook every flight. What is that number? So if the number is 8 out of 10 people end up in the sales room, then put in 80% here. If it's 4 out of 10, there's something wrong in your sales process, but put in 4 out of 10. You got to be honest with yourself. This is not what you want to achieve. This is sort of informed on what you want to achieve. You're just starting out, but what you know is sort of happening at the moment. What is that? So the next stage then, prior to the client booking, is a client conversation. So some people might call this a pre-shoot consultation. You can call it whatever you want, but it's a conversation from somebody who's already expressed an interest in having a photographic experience with you. That's what it is. So here we've asked you what percentage of conversations you have end up with them in front of camera. So if it's 1 out of 2, then this will be 50%, which is 5 out of 10. If it's 6 out of 10, then it'd be 60%. So I'm going to change this to 60%. Okay. And then the step prior, so then we're still putting the cart before the horse. So the step prior, so we have our sale, we have our bookings experience in front of camera, we have our conversations to bring them in there. And the step prior to that is the lead generation. So when you generate your leads, yeah, out of every 10 leads you generate, how many result in a conversation or pre-shoot consultation? Is it 1 out of 10? Is it 9 out of 10? If it's 9 out of 10, your marketing is really hot, or you're doing a lot of pre-qualification along the way before that conversation. But whatever the number is, put it in there. I put in 40%. I'm going to leave it at 40%. Okay. So by answering these 6 simple questions, we're going to answer a whole load of things for you. A whole load of things for you. Because if I ask a lot of photographers, so if you want to earn net of tax 40,000 from your photography business, what do you need your turnover to be based on best practice? And a lot will say, I haven't a clue. And that's understandable because I was there once too, believe it or not, in my business until I discovered Profit First and understood all those things. So what this does then, answering these questions, the first step is it translates all that out for you. So the calculator translates out for you that you need total revenue based on those numbers of 105,000. Your cost of goods is going to be 25,000. Where did it get that number? Let me show you. It basically takes the number of client sales sessions you're going to have and multiplied it by your average cost of goods. Yeah. So that's where that 25,000 comes from. This figure of real revenue is a profit first principle. I'm not going to get into the reason why it exists just now, but it's basically the difference between your revenue and your cost of goods. That's real revenue. And how we came up with this real revenue number, it's this minus this. But what we actually did was we took your owner's pay of 40,000, and we know businesses of this size, the best practice for profit first clients doing this is if you want to earn 40,000 from your business, you're going to have real revenue of 80,000. And I added cost of goods to get this total revenue. Yeah, but don't get hung up on the reason why, because the calculator will do all the calculations for you. So here's now a really important figure that's coming out of this calculator too. Not only do I know what my revenue needs to be, I know what I'm going to pay myself, I know what my cost of goods are going to be, but it's also calculating for me what my average sales value needs to be. What my average sales value needs to be to make all these numbers happen. So I now know if I have 100 sales sessions and an average sales value of 1,050 with these cost of goods, that I can have a real revenue of this, and provided I run my business and keep my operation expenses at this, I'm going to make this in profit, and I'm going to pay myself as the owner of this, and I'm going to have this money in my bank account at the end of the year to pay my tax bill. How cool is that? That's why I love Profit First. But we've taken it another step in that we're using the Profit First principles now to calculate out this. And now that you have this, this is where I start with every client in creating a price list. Let's take what you need this average sales value to be, and now let's build your price list, to manufacture your price list, to create your price list, to try and guarantee that this might happen, or to maximize the chances of this happening, because there's no guarantees in life, right? That's what we do it for. And all this data is coming from those 6 simple questions we asked at the start. Okay. And that's great. And I hear you saying, that's great, Ronan. Okay, I know, but like, my gosh, like how many leads do I need to create then? Because you've gone through all those leads and conversations and stuff to do that. So I know now I need my average sales value at that, and I can build my price list around that. But you know, what am I going to do in the marketing, and what do I need my marketing budget to be, and all that sort of stuff. So that's where our second calculator comes in. And both these calculators are linked to each other. I'm actually very proud of these calculators because they're my own invention. Everyone loves what they create themselves. You love the art you create. I love creating this sort of stuff. So what we've done here then is based on, do you remember I said about the cart before the horse? So do you remember we said how many sales sessions are you going to have? So we started with 100. And then we asked, so how many client sessions, bookings, including no shows, do you need to get that sale out of how many? 10? Yeah. So out of every 10, and it calculates this. So it's now saying, right, to get 100 sales sessions, you actually need, based on your numbers, 125 bookings. And the step prior to that, so the cart before the horse again, we discussed, so out of every 10, yeah, client conversations or pre-shoot consultations, how many result in a booking? So we're just working backwards here. So we now know, based on our numbers, and everyone's numbers are unique, for 100 sales, I'm going to have 125 conversations. I'm going to have 125 client sessions. I'm going to have 208 conversations. And based on how many leads I generate that result in a conversation or a pre-shoot consultation, I'm going to need 521 of them. Now, isn't that a key number to know? So now we know from these calculators that to deliver these numbers, based on our assumptions, our marketing needs to generate 521 leads in 2021. So now I can start to plan around those. Now I can start to plan around those numbers. I now have a starting point. I know my marketing needs to do this. Okay. But there's different things in marketing, right? So a lot of people say, okay, but how do I set a marketing budget to generate those leads? So rather than starting with the budget required to generate those leads, I sort of reverse that a little bit and say, so what percentage of your total sales and revenue will you commit to your marketing budget? A lot of people say, well, I haven't a clue. Well, I'd say, well, you got to try and put a number on it. You might be out, and you mightn't get this right, but at least put a number on it for your plan. And there's various research done across a whole lot of industries that ranges from a bank that spends 6% of total revenue out to consumer services from businesses at 18%. But a good number that we've always come up with, and a lot of people talk about this number, is 10%, because 10.4% I think is the actual average across all business types. But you might only want to have 7, that's fine. Wherever the number is, you put that percentage in here. And the next question I ask is, if you've been doing your marketing correctly, you've been generating leads over the years, and you've also had possibly past clients who you can come back, right? So out of your sessions, I'm asking you, out of your sessions, how many of those sessions, what percentage of those sessions will come from what we call own data? So own data is basically the leads that are in your mailing list, and your mailing list for past clients. Because in any marketing activity that photographers who know what they're doing do, is if they've got an offer or whatever they're doing, they will first market to existing clients, then they will market to try and bring them back into their world, then they'll market to their own data, that those ideal client leads that they have that haven't yet become a client, and then they will go and they'll try and get fresh leads and clients into their business with what's left in the marketing budget. So I asked you to pick a number here. This photographer, and it's not a real photographer, I just made it up, is saying that 20% of my bookings that book in to come in for an experience are going to come from past clients or own data. You might say, no, that's too high. Like, so if you're a photographer and you're doing newborn, yeah, that number will probably be far less than that. Then there are some photographers who get the same clients back year in, year out, and they might get more than that. But I'm going to change it to 10%. Okay. And then the final question we ask to calculate out your full marketing plan and numbers and KPIs is we ask you, out of your marketing budget, and we're going to calculate that now based on this percentage, but out of your marketing budget, you're going to have a combination of what we call a fixed cost and a variable marketing cost. Oh, Ronan, stop talking all that jargon. What's the difference? Okay, the difference is a fixed cost. The easiest way to think about it is a cost you have whether you generate one lead or you generate 1 million leads. So what might that be? So your website hosting. If you're part of a mastermind marketing group for training, if you have a marketing mentor, yeah. Now, not your training for operations or finance or sales, just in the marketing area, because this is purely marketing. If you have software to run something, so you might be using MailChimp for your email marketing, where you're paying a subscription a month. You might be using a piece of software to create your website. You might be using a piece of software to create your marketing funnels, whatever they are. All those fixed costs, that it's the same cost. So you're going to pay, the same cost per month to host your website, whether there's one visitor or there's 100,000 visitors a month. Yeah, that's a fixed cost. So just put in whatever that figure is a year. Okay. If you don't know what it is, just take out a spreadsheet and write it down. Just write down all the headings and add it up and just put your best guess. Again, this doesn't have to be perfect at this stage. Yeah. It's just a starting point and an indicator. So rather than worrying about getting it perfect, if you go with your gut, you'll be close. I promise you'll be close. And if you don't go with your gut, if you're more of a perfectionist than I am, and those numbers aren't sort of in your head, then just take out your credit card bill and look at your monthly subscriptions that are linked to marketing. Yeah. And then have a look at a couple of months together and you'll find those yearly ones. But you probably know the number already, okay? So put that in there. And this is what it does. It calculates out for you that your yearly marketing budget is now 8,000 in total. But the marketing budget available to you to generate new leads and bring new bookings into your business is only 5,000. Why? It's only 5,000 because there's 3,000 allocated to fixed costs that we just talked about. Yeah. So the amount of money that's available to generate new leads is just 5,000. This photographer at the very beginning, do you remember? This photographer had said how many number of sessions they were going to do. So this is calculating that based on this photographer's number, that they're going to get 10% of their bookings from past clients or email contacts they already have. That number is 13. So the bookings required, these are the people in front of the camera, the bookings, including the no-shows, that their marketing needs to generate is 113 additional to the 13. But here's the really clever bit for me, because this is a question we're asked all the time, right? It then calculates out a key performance indicator, one of the first key performance indicators, which is how much can you spend to acquire a new booking based on these numbers. The number here is 44. We also know that the new client leads that we need to generate is 459. And then the final piece then is the maximum amount. And this is a guidance figure. This is a guidance figure. Why is this a guidance figure? This is a guidance figure because certain marketing activity might have a slightly higher. So for example, if I take online marketing funnels, if you do a register to win, this lead cost will be much lower. It'll be about 3, somewhere between 150 and 350. But if a direct offer where the client has to actually part with someone up front as part of the process, the lead cost will be far greater. But by combining those two marketing funnels, this will be the average over a year. Yeah, that you want to make sure your average is over here. So it's a guidance rather than it has to be exactly this. But see this number? It has to be this number. This is the number we have to make happen. It's the cost of that booking in front of us. Okay. And what we've done is we've taken all these numbers across these two calculators, and we've put them onto one page for you. One page. These are your KPIs that your business is going to live by and die by and prosper by and rebuild by. These are the numbers that you're going to live with every single day. These are numbers you're going to check on an ongoing basis. These are numbers you're going to check every single week to see if you deliver them or not. And what it's calculating is that your target average sales value needs to be 1,050. We already knew that number, right? Your target real revenue that we talked about earlier is 800. So that's simply your average sales value minus your cost of goods. There's the cost of goods figure. And then finally, we have our average order value number. So what's the difference between sales value and order value number? So your sales value is your total sales divided by the number of sales you had. It doesn't take account of all your no-shows and your no purchases. Your average order value takes your total sales and divided by the number of bookings that are in this calculator, which will include all your no-shows and will also include your zero purchasers. And why that's an interesting number to keep account of is you're trying to get these as close as possible. Yeah. That, i.e., the more people who buy and you have no zero purchases, the closer this number here will be to this number. So that's why that's a measure. So you can keep a track of it. So if this number 840 next month is 640, right? And it was, you were planning for 840, and it was 840 before, it's going to say, oh, what's wrong? There's something wrong. I need to go and find out why. That's why it's a really good indicator. We've already discussed that the max you can pay per booking is 44. And the guidance figure per lead is 11. So on the earlier page, I think that 11 was 10 points, whatever it was. What was it? 10.67. I've just rounded it up on these KPIs. Yeah, just rounded it up or rounded it down, depending on the number. And then here we've taken the activity. So this is what we call the activity. So this is what I need to do every single week to make these numbers happen. I got to make these numbers happen, but I've also got to make sure that this is the activity I need to do. I need to generate 10 new leads every single week. Every single week, that's my target. If I have a week and I only generate 5, my sales are not going to be where they need to be. I have to get these 10. That's my focus. If I get more, great. If I get less, I got to get my butt in action and get them in. I've got to generate 4 conversations, pre-shoot consultations based on my numbers. And these numbers will be all different for you all based on your numbers and your assumptions. Yeah. Then I've got to have 3 bookings and I've got to have 2 sales. I've got to make sure these 2 sales are at this average sales value to deliver my numbers. I need to do that week in, week out for 48 weeks of the year. That's what I've got to do. And now I have a target. And I know if I do that and I keep all these numbers correctly and I get the volume that I need as well. Yeah, I have to have 100 sales at this average sales value to deliver my numbers. If I've only 50, I'm not going to deliver my numbers. If I've only 70, I'm not going to deliver my numbers. If I've only 90, I'm not going to deliver my numbers. I have to get to the number. And that's why I hate average sales value on its own, because I hear some people saying, oh, I have an average sales value of 3,000 and I have an average sales value of 10,000. If you have an average sales value of 10,000, right, it sounds wonderful. But if you've only 1 sale a year, that's not a business. Yeah, I'd much prefer a photographer tell me I have an average sales value of 1,000 and I have 100 sales a year. That's a business. That's 100,000 sales. Yeah. So just be careful. Like when somebody tells me, if someone tells you, yeah, I have an average sales value of 5,000, the next question you should ask them is, so how many sales do you have a year? Because you have to multiply the average by the actual number for it to mean anything. Otherwise, it's just a vanity metric and it's misleading and it's not the full picture and it's not the full story. Okay, so they're the calculators. So hopefully I haven't bored you too much with that. But the next step then, when we have those numbers, and I will take the questions in a second, when we have those numbers, what do we do with them? So what we do with them, oh, that's not the one. Sorry, I should be going back to my presentation. PowerPoint, where are you? There you go. Oh, is the one. So when you calculate those numbers then that are on the calculator, you just merely transfer them into these and they're all referenced with a number. Yeah. So now on your one-page business success plan, you have the full picture of what you're trying to achieve in your business. And that's a daily reminder, because as we discussed last week, this page sits over your desk. So it's a constant reminder. Okay, I'm going to put on my eyes. I can take a couple of the questions before we get into doing your client gold avatar and your client gold elevator pitch. So let me just see what the questions are. Doug says, I've been working all morning on my values and my why. Very insightful. Good, Doug. I'm glad you're enjoying it. You know, that they're the foundation to anything. So, and if you're in BSA Mastermind, there's more video content in there that will help with that. So delighted to have you here. And the other questions I have. So Joe's asking, if we have different segments we work with, example, weddings and seniors, which are different revenues and costs, do we make this charge for each segment or simply use an average? That's a great question, Joe, and it's a question that I get all the time. So if the average sales value is significantly different, I think when starting, what I would do is I would say, let's say, let's take the numbers easy to make them easy for me. Let's say 70% of your business, okay, let's say 70% of your business is weddings and 30% is high school seniors. And let's say, to keep the number simple for me, you want to earn 100,000 from your business. Well, then I would do one calculator and I'd start at my owner's pay as 70,000 and work my numbers based on it. And I'd take another calculator and start with 30,000 and do the details and see what those numbers are. Hopefully that's helped. You can do it another way, but I think that's the easiest way starting out. Suzanne says, I don't understand the difference between CBPT and TLC in sales and marketing. Okay, let me just go and share it again, Suzanne. I just want to go back to the marketing one. So we're looking for CPBT and TLC. CPBT and TLC. Okay. So we're talking about the difference between the booking and the lead. So a lead, Suzanne, a lead is somebody who expresses an interest in booking you. Yeah. But so they're a lead you've gathered, there's information you've gathered. The booking is when they've gone through your whole sales process and they're in front of camera. So every lead will not get in front of camera, become a booking. Hopefully that explains it, and I hope I've explained that right. Okay, but what we will do is we can revisit it. Let's just see, Suzanne. Where's my Q&A gone? I don't know where it's gone. So hopefully, Suzanne, that answers it. Yeah. So, and if not, I think if it is you, Suzanne, I don't know where my chat's gone or my Q&A's gone, but Suzanne, if it is you, we can talk about that again. If because you're in BSA Mind and you're currently on the journey of creating your business success plan over the 7 weeks. So we'll deep dive into it again, and I'll answer it there for you. Okay, Doug, if you're offering online photography courses for sale, how do you estimate leads and sales for these courses? Exactly the same, Doug. So it's, again, you know, you bring people into your world and you post stuff. I've seen some of your stuff in some of our groups, and you bring people to a blog, and I presume you're capturing some information there. So that's the lead. And then so you will target for every campaign that you do, you should have a targeted number of leads you want to generate, and then working on your conversion ratio, how many you hope ends up in a booking. So hopefully that answers your question. Okay. So let's go back to the non-number stuff that generally people like better. Let me just go back here. But it's really important to do this number stuff, guys. We've got to get this number stuff down. Okay. So, and I'll come back to the questions now in a second. So what we're going to do now is we're going to discuss your client gold avatar. So your client gold avatar, the principles behind having a client gold avatar, some people call this ideal client persona. You can call it whatever you want, yeah? But it's basically who your ideal client is. And the reason why we put this within the marketing pillars is when you're writing ad copy, when you're writing your blog, when you're writing anything, this is the reference point. So after you write it, you look at this and you say, yes, it is that marketing generation. Yes, it is where my client hangs out. So anything you're going to do, any campaign, you got to be sure your ideal client gold avatar hangs out there too. So the first consideration I ask you to consider is, what marketing generation are they from? Are they millennial, Gen Y? So most of your newborn clients will be there right now, your wedding clients. Parts of the country where people get married younger and have children younger, they may be Gen Z. So the oldest Gen Z or Z person now is 23. They're your high school senior. So if you're in high school senior business, they would fall into that category. So whatever that marketing generation is, and don't forget the older marketing generations. 80% of the wealth in the Western world are Generation Xers and baby boomers. So don't forget them. Yeah. So if you can involve, so the older families will be Gen X, people who are 36 years of age and older, 36 to 60 next year will be Gen X. So I'm in that category of 51 this year, 52 next year. So I'm in Gen X. And then, so all my children are, they're older. So if you're doing older families, it's probably a Gen X family. And then maybe there's some Gen Xers who are grandparents, yeah, and baby boomers that are grandparents. And if they've 80% of the wealth, yeah, they're people that will certainly have the money to spend. Like I know, even when we go out for dinner as a family, my son is 28, I have a 23-year-old, 22-year-old, and an 18-year-old, and despite they all working and having great businesses, it's normally daddy that is expected to put his hand in the pocket to pay. Now, maybe that's something I did wrong in life, but that's the reality. So, and the same, if you can involve them in your sales process, if you're doing newborns and involve those grandparents and get them involved, they can spend once you've educated them right along the way. So the second thing then is, you're going to do offline marketing and you're going to do online marketing. So the second question here is, where does your tribe hang out? Where does your client goal tribe hang out offline? So this photographer, who's a newborn photographer that we've filled out all the way along in the examples, they've identified that maternity yoga, that all their big spenders, all their client goals, ideal client goal clients, they do maternity yoga. The vast majority do. So what does that mean? That means then when you're looking for a vendor to partner with, or to do something together, or to get your brand in front of these clients offline, you're going to make sure that that's who you partner with. Yeah. If your ideal client goals never goes swimming, well, then what's the point in doing a partnership with the local swimming pool? Just as an example. Yeah. So just try and figure those things out. The second thing then is, online marketing is really, really key. Online marketing is probably going to be the best lead source you have at the right price, and you can convert right if you do it right. But you got to figure out which mountain are they using for social media. We call it the social media mountain. So for this photographer, recognize that Facebook is where their client hangs out. That's where they hang out. If it's high school senior and the person who's going to buy is mum, she's probably on Facebook. If you want to involve the senior in recommending you, well, then maybe you might want to be on TikTok or Instagram or Snapchat, or certainly be doing stuff on that to bring those people into your world. Another indicator that a lot of photographers use is, location, neighborhood, zip code, postcode, depending which part of the world you're in. So it's not always the case, but sometimes it is. So put that in there. And then the other three sections then are 4 other things you've noticed about your ideal client goal client. So I have some clients, they recognize that, it's only when most of their big spenders buy a house in a certain location and at a certain value. Yeah. So if that's the case, it's not always the case, but if that's the case, then fill that in here. Some clients of mine recognize that their biggest spenders, they're both professionals. Yeah. That's why they're not available during the week for a session. It's the weekends that they want to come. So, but if they're both professionals, then log that, because that will indicate a whole lot of things to your business, including your marketing. And then also find out, is there something else they're interested in? So this photographer has realized that their clients are really into rugby, which is a game. I know there is an American team as well, but it's a game primarily played in Europe and the Southern Hemisphere. By knowing that, then I'm going to see how can I somehow put my brand in front of them in the local rugby or if there's a charity, a fundraiser for that rugby club, I'm going to get myself involved in that. While if they're into baseball, right, or if I do something like that, a charity thing with the baseball club, my ideal client isn't there, I should have done it in the rugby club. Wouldn't that be really good to know? So how do you find out all this information? You talk to your clients, you talk to them, and when you talk to them and you ask them the questions, you actually gather this information. You gather the information, and eventually then you form a picture around it. And that will help you maximize your marketing both online and offline and get you the results that you want for the amount of marketing budget that you may have available. Is you've got to get into that detail. Okay, so the next step then is the elevator pitch. So what's that? I'm sure you've heard this term before, elevator pitch. The client goal elevator pitch is slightly different because there's a few nuances going on in here. But basically it's the principle of, if I met you in an elevator and we're on the 17th floor, by the time we get to the first floor, I ask you, what are you going to do? What do you do? You want to use that opportunity to tell me what you do, what my problem is, show me the transformation, and in so doing, qualify me as to whether I'm a potential client or not. That's effectively what you're trying to do. So we've written this out for you. So you start with the client. So in our case, it's many photographers struggle to turn their passion for photography into profit. We solve this by helping them master the business of photography. Imagine gaining financial independence from your photography business. So if anybody in any elevator asks me, what do I do? That's what I tell them. Well, when I'm talking to a lot of photographers, many photographers tell me, I'm a newborn photographer, I'm a wedding photographer. Nobody really cares. What they want to know is, what can you do for me? And what's in it for me if I do business with you? And I know that sounds terrible, but that's the fact. That's all they care about. It's all they care about. So we've got to try and get that across to them. But it's also really important because it's also a qualifier for us. Because when we deliver that message, we're qualifying them whether not only are they right for us, but if we're right for them. So that's the power of that. And you have to get it to a stage where it just comes naturally to you. And you need to practice your delivery of it in the mirror when you've got it done. And that every time anyone asks you, you don't be shy about delivering and saying, oh, it's too long, I'm going to bore them, so I'm just going to go back and tell them I'm a newborn photographer. You can't do that. You can't do that. You have to do this. You've got to do it. And by having it on your elevator pitch, what these two things then start to inform, they start to inform everything you do. So take, for example, if I'm writing an advert for a Facebook campaign, I look at my client avatar and I look at the ad copy I'm writing and I imagine it as a love letter. Because when I'm writing a love letter, I have a visualization of my lover as I write them the love letter. In the same way, if you're writing a communication with your ideal client avatar, you should have a visualization of them. And that's how this stuff works. And because it's in front of you on your business success plan, every time you go to do your marketing, well, then that's a checklist against it. And then this, your client goal elevator pitch, will actually inform all of your messaging. It'll inform all of the messaging you put on your website and your landing pages and your brochures or wherever you do. It'll inform that as to what it needs to say so that you create messaging that connects with that client goal avatar. So this one can be really difficult to figure out. This is time. This is time and research, but this can take a little bit longer to do. So I just have a couple of just systems and frameworks to help you with that. So the first one is to think about the client problem. So we're thinking about the problem that we solve for the client. And at a very high level, there's only 3 problems that you solve for anyone in the world. Yeah, I'll say that again. There's only 3 problems at a high level. At the very highest level, you know, organizational charts where you see CEO and then the vice presidents and then the management team and then, you know, and all the levels. So this is the same idea here with the problem. So at the top, there's 3 CEOs, 3 CEO problems, right? The first one is wealth. So does your problem solve a wealth problem? The second one is health. Does your solution solve a health problem? Or 3, does your solution solve a relationship problem? And once you figure that out, that's at the very top of the problem. Now, each of these problems niche down, depending where you are in the world, down to further levels. So for example, if I take the health problem can niche down into something down a couple of levels like, I don't know, a supplement to help you have more energy, to a cardiologist who ensures you won't have a heart attack, to a gym that provides fitness offerings to ensure you have a healthier body so you don't have a health problem, to a dietitian who helps you eat properly so you lose weight to get you the right weight. You get me? So, but at the very high level, they all relate back to the health problem. So you've got to ask yourself in your business, what's the high level problem that you solve? And that will help inform the creation of this client gold elevator pitch. The sub-level then is, what's the sub-level problem? So once you identify the high-level problem, what's the sub-level problem you solve? And then the third one then is, you've identified the problem. How do you solve it for your client? So how does what you do solve the problem for your client? You got to figure that out from your client's perspective. What is it? And then finally, the third part is, what's the transformation your client goes through if they experience your service? So you can ask that another way. What does a potential client miss out on by not going through your service? And if you think of it with those 2 sort of different caps on, then it will help just inform your thinking. And I know this can be difficult, but you need to spend time with this. And you won't solve this straight away, but I do encourage you to fill it out initially, your first draft on your business success plan, the first thing that comes into your head, and then look at it and read it, reflect on it, come back to it tomorrow or in a couple of days, reflect again, and eventually it'll all fit together. And if you do your why that Doug was mentioning a little bit earlier, if you discover your why, your why will inform a lot of this for you. Your core values, that 3 circles of you, when you do your core values, will inform who some of your ideal client is. And all those things connect. So everything on that one page connects, from the numbers you need to create to deliver your results, to your 3 marketing pillars, right through to the 3 circles of you. All those things actually interconnect. And when you do it, and it becomes second nature to you by doing over and over and over again and preparing it and getting it done, and you can get it done in a few weeks, it can be done. It'll be like jigsaw puzzle pieces, all coming together to blend together to create it. Okay. So let's just see what other questions we have. How are we doing on time? I always go over. I can't stop talking. Oh, we're grand. We have 7 minutes. Great. So let's just see what other questions we have. Suzanne, we'll talk about it later. Okay. What would you be doing for the booking that will spend more money? You're not spending more money to get it, Suzanne, but it's you will spend some money on marketing to generate leads, and some of those leads will have a conversation and end up as a booking. So the booking figure is people that actually end up in front of camera, and the leads guidance number is the number of people who express an interest. So for example, we talked about, Suzanne, where you went to a fair and you had leaflets to give out to people, and that you wanted to gather their information. Yeah, so you're going to gather their information in return for something you're going to give them. Yeah, and their leads. But all those people who give you their contact information will not end up in front of your camera as a booking. So it's just calculating the cost of generating the lead versus the cost of getting someone in front of camera. So if you spent, say you spent 100 quid at that show, including what you give out, $100, and you gathered 10 leads, yeah, your cost per lead is 10, i.e. 100 cost divided by 10 leads captured equals 10. But only 2 of those end up in front of your camera as a booking, then your cost per booking is the 100 spent divided by the 2 bookings, which is 50. So hopefully that'll help. But the total spend was the same for the leads as it was for the bookings. Okay. Any more questions? And we can chat about it later. Yeah, if you want to have another chat later, we can do that. So we answered Joe's question already on that. Let me just stop the share just for a second. I just want to go back into chat because people are putting questions in different locations. I work with solopreneurs who need photographs for their marketing. Would this be a good elevator pitch? Doug, I haven't time to get into the individual at this stage because we have some other stuff to do. But if you want to do up your elevator pitch and send it to me, I'll give you some feedback. Or if you want to, you know, that would be the best way, I think, Doug, if that's okay with you. Okay, so let me share the screen again and go back to the presentation. And we'll finish this out. So when you've discovered that, then you've discovered all these answers, you fill them out on your page underneath your 3 marketing pillars. And then when you've done that, you've got your total page. So now you've got your page and you take your numbers off the calculator and you fill them in here. And this page lives in front of you over your desk every single day. And I recommend you read it every single morning as a reminder. And then when you go and you work out your marketing campaigns at an individual level, you're using these numbers to calculate it out. So for example, let's say you're going to do a charity partnership, okay? You will start and say, right, I want to get 10 bookings from this charity partnership. So what's your budget for the event? So your budget is 10 times what you can spend per booking. So I think the numbers we had in the calculator we looked at a little bit earlier was 41, right? So your maximum marketing budget for that campaign is 410. In the same way, if you're going to do an online marketing funnel and you're going to use Facebook advertising, yeah, the max you can spend per booking, let's say your aim is to get 50 bookings. So the 41 doesn't change, right? So your max marketing budget then for that campaign is 41 times 50, which is 2,000 odd, a little bit more than 2,000. 2,050, I think, if I'm doing that math right in my head. So that's just an idea as to what this is. So then when you have your marketing budget and you have that, and you also know what you can generate in what your cost per lead is, they're your indicators that when you do the campaign, you look at the results and you measure them against that, against what you plan to do, against what you actually delivered. And then you dissect the results at the end, including the revenue that you generated from those bookings. And then you start to look and say, right, if I'm running this campaign again, what's the one thing I'd change next time? And that's how all these pieces fit together. So for all of your marketing, a lot of photographers I meet, they don't start with a campaign plan as to what the campaign plan is. What are the objectives from the campaign? And then what are the results of those? And then dissect those results to say, if I was doing this again, this is the one thing I would change next time around. Because if you change two things and it fails again, or it's more successful again, you don't know which one of those two things made the difference. So just as scientists who are developing out vaccines, they change one thing at a time, yeah? Change one thing, measure the results. Change another thing, measure the results. Change one more thing, measure the results until they get the solution. Because if they change two things at once, they don't know what has happened. Okay, so we've got all those indicators then on the first page, the vision page, and then we put it over our desk, and then we have the action page, which is the second page. And the action page basically takes what's on the one page and puts the objectives for the next quarter, the next 12 weeks that we're going to do. And we saw that at the very first slide when we saw the 2 pages. So we've dealt now over the last Tuesday and Thursday. We finished sort of the foundation to preparing this 1-page business success plan. If you want to deep dive more, just join our group, BSA Mastermind. And all of this content is deep dived into. It's all available to you. It's all there in the videos, and all the calculators will be in there, and all and the pages that we taught in the 2-page business success plan in there for you as well. And remember, guys, in business, success is not final. I've never met a business owner yet who says, I'm actually happy where I am, who actually truly believe that. Yeah. So when we get to a certain level, it's human nature that we want to get to the next level. And that's why success is never final. Failure is not fatal. You will fail along the way. You will fail. I failed. I lost a business in 2009 with 45 people employed, and it cost me an enormous amount of money. My business went bust. But by gosh, I learned so much from that. And that informs a lot of what I teach today, because all the systems, like I detail analyzed why did that fail. So, and one of the reasons it failed was that business that failed, I'd previously merged 3 years prior, and the core values of the business we merged with were not the same. And it was a 50-50 merger. It was a marriage made in hell. And that was the foundation to the business failing in the end. The final nail was the recession that we had. Yeah. But it's not fatal. You pick yourself up, you rub yourself off. What did I learn from that experience? And you go again. So you'd be delighted to know that you're probably all looking at the biggest failure among everyone who's here. And the third thing, and that's where you rub yourself off, you've got to have the courage to continue. That counts. You just keep going. Nothing's going to, like Einstein said it. Yeah. Einstein said, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is the definition of madness. And there's nothing truer. Nothing is going to change unless you change something that you do. You've got to change something that you do. So let's just see, is there any last questions before we call it a wrap? Any questions over there? No, and none in Q&A. Right. So I just want to thank you all for joining us today. Again, if you want more of this, join BSA Mastermind as our group. It's free to join. You can deep dive into the content. And please, 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 try and fill it out. You know, don't look for perfect. Get your page filled out with your best guess. And over time, everything that you do will be informed by that page, and you will learn from both the page and what you do, and it'll just connect the dots for you and it'll work for you. And it won't guarantee your success, because there's no such thing as a guarantee in life. You all know that. But what we'll do is it will help fast track your success. And when something does go wrong, you'll be starting in a far better position than anyone who doesn't have a plan. So that's it for this session. Thank you so much for joining me. We look forward to seeing you again in the think tank. We look forward to seeing you in BSA Mastermind. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you all again soon.